Our guest today in this IPI Global Observatory interview series with candidates vying to become the next United Nations Secretary General is Vuk Jeremić, President of the Belgrade-based Center for International Relations and Sustainable Development, former President of the UN General Assembly, and former Foreign Minister of Serbia. I'm going to be asking Mr. Jeremić the same four questions that we are putting to the other candidates for Secretary General whom we are interviewing for the Global Observatory. We have shared these questions with him in advance, as we have with all the interviewees. So the first question is, the United Nations Charter describes the Secretary General as the Chief Administrative Officer of the organization and the person who can call the attention of the Security Council to matters the Secretary General believes may threaten international peace and security. But the job has evolved into something much more than that, a mix of global diplomacy and oversight of the UN's Executive Office, serving the three pillars of the organization: human rights, peace and security, and development. How would you shape the job and define your priorities for the office?
Well, I do believe that we live in a time where the UN is in a need of rejuvenation, that the pace of change in the world is actually higher than the pace of change in the organization itself. And if I get a privilege to serve the member states as the next Secretary General, I intend to innovate, and I intend to do things perhaps in a different way that things were done in the past. But in order to be very transparent about what I intend to do, I put forward a concrete platform. I think that I was the first candidate in history to put forward a platform. It contains some very concrete commitments, 53 of them, that I intend to carry out from day one in case I get elected. Those commitments relate to sustainable development, to climate change, to conflict prevention and peace operations, and how to do the overhaul of current peacekeeping of the United Nations, then human rights, and the reform of the Secretariat itself. There are 53 things that I intend to do, and I was very, very open about it. But broadly speaking, I think that in the era of growing geopolitical frictions and growing challenges for humanity, the future Secretary General will need to be able to navigate those currents, to navigate those geopolitical currents, and at the same time demonstrate operational capacity to be operationally innovative, to be hands-on, and to be a good communicator with the member states and the international community at large.
The second question is, can you discuss aspects of your background and professional career that manifest, one, proven leadership, managerial abilities, and strategic vision; two, extensive experience in international relations and multilateral diplomacy; and three, something you just mentioned, strong global communication skills?
Well, when I was a young man, I lived in a part of the world in an era that was a difficult one. I witnessed the consequences of the failure of diplomacy, of the failure of the United Nations. I witnessed the consequences of the lack of the rule of law and an upsurge in poverty. As a young man, I fought for democracy. I was one of the founders of the movement that brought about democracy to Serbia. I fought for reconciliation and human rights as an activist. Then I had a privilege of serving my country as foreign minister for close to 6 years. I visited over 100 countries around the world. I addressed almost every major regional gathering in all 5 continents. I presided over the Council of Europe. I also worked hard for consensus to be delivered in the OSCE, which is not a place where consensus is easily achieved, for Serbia to preside over the OSCE as the organization in 2015. I was elected president of the General Assembly. It was for the first time that an election took place after many, many years. As president of the General Assembly, it was my job to start the negotiations on Agenda 2030, I was in the position of the PGA where we worked out and adopted the ATT, the Arms Trade Treaty. We held a series of important thematic debates on many pressing issues of the world. For example, the future of Africa and the relationship between African Union and the United Nations. And I believe that throughout my career in national and international service, I had been faced with people, issues, situations that have helped me better understand the world and where people come from, and at least the essence of what the issues are. And if I get a chance to serve, I'll draw on this experience. And as I said earlier, I'll do it in a very hands-on approach that involves perhaps more communication with the outside world than it has been the case with my predecessors.
Excellent. The 2030 Agenda and the Paris Agreement afford the UN an opportunity to move forward under the most comprehensive sustainable development agenda in its history. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals, known as the SDGs, have universal application to all countries from north to south. They integrate the three fundamental aspects of development: economic, social, and environmental, and they include issues that were once outside the scope of development, particularly peace and climate change. How do you see the Secretary General's role in promoting and prioritizing this overall agenda?
Well, first and foremost, I'm very partial. I'm very subjective when it comes to a Sustainable Development Agenda, having served as the president of the GA who had launched these discussions. But I've been involved in issues related to sustainable development ever since, in my work as civil society in particular. I agree with you. This is perhaps most comprehensive and bold diplomatic undertaking in human history. And achieving sustainable development in less than 2 decades and achieving control of climate change is going to be the overarching challenge for humanity in the years ahead. It's going to be, in many ways, when it comes to climate for sure, existential challenge. And in case I get elected Secretary General, I intend to put this at the center, at the very center of my work and the work of the entire organization. I would instruct the entire UN system to make it a priority. This is the reason why my platform starts with sustainable development, continues with climate change, and it contains concrete provisions and things that I intend to do and to instruct the parts of the UN system to do in order to make sure that come 2030 we be in a situation to say we will have fulfilled the Sustainable Development Goals. That will be my absolute driving priority, the Secretary General.
Thank you. And the third question, and this is an open question, is there something you would like to elaborate on or emphasize in outlining your thoughts on the job of UN Secretary General and its possibilities?
Well, I'd first like to say that the United Nations, its idea and its work throughout the decades have served as a great inspiration for many millions around the world, including myself. And despite some historic achievements, and despite the fact that it's still a depository of grand ideas, and some of its people are amongst the most talented and devoted people that I have met throughout the world, there is a growing sense of stagnation and disappointment with regard to our current works. And I think that the process of election of the next Secretary General is a good opportunity to turn the tide, to reverse this trend. I was asked several questions during the hearing in the General Assembly, which I think was a great development. But in the end of the day, I think that the job of the next Secretary General is to deliver change. And if you happen to believe that we're moving in the organization, that we're moving in the right direction and at the right speed, and if you believe that there shouldn't be any change in the ways we do our business, then I'm not your guy. I'm not your candidate. If you believe that we need to change the way we do things in the United Nations, I put down in my platform 53 things as to how do I propose that we try and do it together. This is not a conclusive list. It's an invitation for dialogue. I look forward to further suggestions and ideas. But I do think that we need to change our ways in order to be able to serve humanity like our predecessors served humanity in the past.
Vuk Jeremić, thank you very much.
Thank you.